Hello, hi. So I am back for day 25 of VEDA, and today I want to kind of continue my, or kind of, I guess, have another conversation about um, what it means to be a freelancer versus a business owner. So if you did not see my previous video, not the last one, but a previous prior video, just where I talk about, basically tell a story of how I decided that I did not want to own my own entity per se. I wanted to, that does not necessarily mean I'm not entrepreneurial, and that doesn't make me not an entrepreneur. And so check that out. But for this video, I wanted to kind of explain a little further what that means, because I definitely see how people are, when I see a lot of conversations online happening about entrepreneurship, and I think the conversation is imbalanced. So I just wanted to offer my professional but personal experience, since I've lived in this space most of my career. So I want to talk about the difference between a freelancer, a consultant, and a business owner. So I went to handydandydictionary.com to just pull it up, because I wanted to define kind of what it is that's kind of out there in the ether, in the zeitgeist. But then I want to share my own kind of how I've seen it actually play out in the workplace. So we'll start with freelancer. A freelancer is a person who sells work or services by the hours, day job, etc., rather than working on a regular salary basis for one employer. So that's actually one form of freelancer. Now we kind of have where you can work for one employer and be a freelancer, and that's really more about kind of your hiring designation, where it's kind of like they might, the company might not cover insurance for you. They might not, cover benefits. You're just kind of an employee. You work there, but it's easier to lay off freelancers because their employment is not as tied to the company as an employee. And so that is also, I think, kind of muddying the waters, because you're starting to see more people working within an entity, like full-time, 40 hours a week. They work for one company, but they're a freelancer. But that's more in kind of your, I guess, internal employee designation as it relates to like benefits, the way you're paid, and all of that. I'm talking more so as people who are freelancers who work like with the definition, where you might work for multiple companies. You might work on a project by project basis. So if you work in like the television and film industry, a lot of people in that industry are freelancers. Not everyone, because some people are actually like employees for a particular production company or for a particular show that work on, like, that's their job. But some people are freelancers, so you're hired to work on that particular production, and then after that production you're no longer working with that production company. And so that is a common job kind of way that's approached. So that's what a freelancer is. Now let's define consultant. A consultant is a person who gives professional or expert advice. A person who gives professional or expert advice. And then a business owner, I tried to look that up on dictionary.com and it did not give me any results, but essentially a business owner is someone who owns a business, like some type of an entity, they own that. Now, how is it that you can be a freelancer or a consultant and not a business owner? So if you're a freelancer or a consultant, the one thing that I would like to clear up, you should have an entity. So either you are the entity, where when you work on jobs, you are paid, the individual, or you might have an LLC for tax purposes. So it helps to kind of separate your personal funds from your professional funds. And then, that's just how some freelancers work and some consultants work, but not all. So it's not a given that if you're a freelancer or a consultant, you'll have an LLC or an INC or an S corp. However you decide to formalize it, that doesn't mean you'll have that. With a business owner, you will. You'll have some type of a formalized organization because you need that, because you are the owner of the business of the entity, which that's already one way that you can be a freelancer or a consultant and not a business owner. Now, all three of those things are a form of entrepreneurship. They just look different. The difference between a freelancer and a consultant is, with a consultant, you're typically hired for your professional advice and insight. And so those typically would be seen as more, I guess, senior roles. So you might be brought in to share your professional opinion. They hire you for your opinion and your insight. You may execute whatever you discuss or recommend. You may not. There's some people who are business consultants that go in, they assess the situation, they come up with a plan, and then they leave. And it's up to the entity that hired them to then execute that plan. There's some consultants that show up, assess, give a plan, and then stick around to make sure that the plan is fully implemented. And so that just varies depending on how much involvement the entity that hires you wants you to have. But that is what a consultant is. As a freelancer, you're not necessarily being hired. You're being hired for your expertise and your skill set. So you can be a freelancer and be kind of what I would call junior, which means like you might have a skill that you can bring to the table. Like say you are a graphic designer, and so you can be a new graphic designer where you might have studied it, you might have had a couple of jobs, but you aren't necessarily coming in and giving feedback and insight on how to, say, run a project, or how to take what it is that you're doing and implement it organization-wide. Or you might not come in and kind of assess their design needs and make a recommendation and then leave. You could just be hired to be a graphic designer. You come in, they say, okay, this is the stuff that we need to be designed. Can you do that? Yes, I can. And then you go through the process of creating the work that they hired you to create. So that is the difference with a freelancer. When you're a business owner, they hire your company. You very likely are not doing the work. You have a team, whether it's a team of 20, 15, a team of 3, whatever it is. You have people who, when they hire your business, they're not hiring you. Your business often does not have your name, or if it does, your name is in it, but it's not just your name, because it's not just you. You might be considered the face of your business in that you very likely do the business development, but that doesn't mean that you do the execution of the work, because if you're a business owner, oftentimes your job is to make sure that the business grows and runs. Another difference: if you want to scale or grow as a freelancer or a consultant, there's one or two ways you can do it. You either get more clients or you charge more. Those are the ways that you scale or grow as a freelancer or a consultant. As a business owner, you scale or grow also those two ways. But when you're scaling or growing, it's not just you have to expand your team. So scaling and growth as a business owner looks different, because as you get more clients and your ability to scale is larger. So you can either get more clients, where then you have to hire more team members to service all of those clients, or you get larger clients where you still might have to hire more team members to service those larger clients, because when you have larger clients, they tend to have more complex needs. But you as the business owner are still not doing the work. So your ability to grow is larger. It's more exponential. You can have more exponential growth as a business owner than you can as a consultant or freelancer, because as a consultant or freelancer, it's just you. Your resources are still limited. You can only take on so many clients physically. even if you have more expensive clients, you can only take on so many before you essentially you hit a wall and you kind of tap out and you cannot grow any further. Now you can start to charge more, then you maybe can take on less clients, so you can still, grow in as a freelancer or a consultant and get more money. That, I'm not saying that caps out your income potential, but your capacity is more limited. Versus as a business owner, you have broader capacity because you have the capability to hire a team. If you are a freelancer or a consultant and you start hiring a team, you are now a business owner. You are now employing people. You now have an entity. And what you will discover if you are in that role is that you begin to come out of the work. It's not sustainable for you to stay in the work and continue to keep feeding that entity, because what you'll learn is that when you start hiring people, you have to pay those people. You have to pay them an equitable wage. You have to make sure that they want to stay with you, so you can't nickel and dime them, because then you have high turnover, and then you are hiring again. So hiring, training, all of that, coming up with processes that it takes in order to bring on people to replicate the same quality of work takes time, effort, thoughts that you can't do while you're doing the work, which is as a business owner, which is why business owners don't do the work. Business owners run the business. And even as your business grows further, what you'll find out is that you can't even stick with the operations of the business, the running of the business. You have to hire someone to do that because you need to sell the business. And so now you're selling it. But what some business owners decide to do is, okay, I want to focus on the operations of the business, but I still have to sell the business, so I have to hire someone to do business development. So you still have to put other factors and people in place in order to make the business continue to grow. So that is why you have a lot of people that want to be a business owner, but really they just want to be freelancers, or really they really want to be consultants, because that it's a senior type of position. When you hire a consultant, you respect their opinion. And you respect their professional opinion. So when they make recommendations, they have more weight. A consultant tends to have more experience. They've been working longer in the industry, and so they tend to know the industry, or at least what they do, more deeply. They have a deeper knowledge. And so consultants, you might find out that they will be more like strategists. Or directors. Like you can hire a consultant to come in to be a creative director on a project, or to be a marketing director, but they are there as a consultant, which means they are working for you for a particular project or for a particular client, but not for everything else. That is the difference. Versus as a freelancer, it's very task oriented. So you're hiring them to execute a task. They do have professional opinion. They can make recommendations, but the recommendations carry a different weight. You accept their recommendations because you hired them for that job. So you hired them for their knowledge, but you may not carry the same level of weight. And so these definitions also can vary. Oftentimes people will use freelancer and consultant interchangeably, which in the world of business, titles often depend on where you're working, but ultimately that is the difference between being a business owner, being a freelancer, being a consultant. But all three of those things fall under the umbrella or in the bucket of entrepreneurship. And you can be an entrepreneur and do those three things. Another element that I want to throw in, because there's this shaming that I see of people who have what they say regular jobs, where you work for an organization, and there's this belief that you can't be entrepreneurial and work for an organization. That is false. Now, you can't be entrepreneurial and work for an organization that does not support being entrepreneurial. But if an organization hires you as a freelancer and they only hire you for that particular job, and if you make recommendations to outside of that, or to add on to that, or to build on that, and they kind of shut you down, then you are an entrepreneur, but you're really an employee who doesn't have benefits. And there is no, and I'm not saying that to shame either one of the other. There's no lesser or greater. I think both All roles are necessary. Everyone is not meant to be a business owner. You shouldn't try. I figured out really quickly that's not my jam, being a business owner. But I have been working in this space long enough to show up as a consultant, which is something that I have done and can do and will very likely do in the future just professionally. I can offer high level strategy advice but the reason why I can do that is because I've been a freelancer who's done the work. And the problem that I also see out here is that you have people who are entry level in the market, who are like recent college graduates, who want to immediately jump out and become entrepreneurs or high level consultants because they're smart, or because they have done this work and they think that this is easy because they might have done it in one instance, but they don't understand best practices. They don't understand industry insights. And so I'll probably do a whole other video just about kind of strategists and what that means versus being someone who executes tasks. But that's also something that I see happening that I think is an issue and problematic, which is why there seems to be a lot of confusion about what it means to be an entrepreneur. So I think that it's just important to remember, just like being an employee, there are buckets. There are people who are completely fine with kind of staying in a role, maybe going to like management, maybe where they like manage a team. But there are some people that don't want to manage a team. They just want to stay in that role and provide that particular expertise to a company, and that's their job. And they might work their way up to where they're making six figures, but they're not a manager. They are not a consultant. They're not a director. They're not a VP. They are that particular role, but on a senior level. So they might be like a senior designer or a senior. That is someone who has been in that role for a long time, but that's the path that they wanted to take. Or you can be in, a corporate machine, a corporate entity, and you can work. You want to be a VP. You want to be a partner. You want to be, in the C-suite. You want to be a CE something, a C something. So you're a CEO or CIO or CFO, whatever, or CMO, whatever it is. But that's another path. And so those are also valiant pursuits, and they require hard work. They require expertise, and they require selling yourself. The same thing if you want to be a business owner and have a multi-million-dollar business. It requires expertise. It requires hard work. It requires selling yourself. If you want to be a freelancer who eventually becomes a consultant, or you just want to be a freelancer where you provide high-level services to different organizations and you can kind of float. To get to the point where you're making the bigger money, it requires expertise. It requires hard work. It requires, focus. So I think it's important to have a more nuanced discussion about entrepreneurship, because it is not a one size fits all thing, and there is no shame in working for an organization. So think about that when you're considering your path. If you want to have an entity and be a business owner, what that means. First of all, you're not going to do the work. You're going to run the business. So if you want to do the work, then having an entity may not be the move. Being a freelancer or a consultant may be the move, and there's nothing wrong with that, and there's freedom in that, and you can still have a great career path and have a lot of really good experiences. When I realized that I did not want to have an entity, but that I had a lot of strengths and skills and resources that I can add to an entity, I was put into a position where I was able to learn and grow as a professional well beyond what I had even considered when I said I could be in that role. And so I'm glad I decided not to try to grind it out and have my own agency, because I wouldn't have been happy, because that didn't spark joy for me at all. The idea of selling, which was a very big part of having your own business, the idea of selling. And so if you don't like to sell, then you might consider not having a business, not being a freelancer or a consultant at all, and just joining a company so you can get your resume up until you maybe don't have to sell yourself, or you find a way to sell yourself in a way that works. There are options. It's not a binary. It's not one or the other. There's a spectrum. There's a range of ways you can be entrepreneurial. So I hope that this helps kind of broaden your perspective Also, what questions do you have? I have spent, like I said in a previous video, I've been working as a professional since I graduated from college in 2000, and I immediately went to the word freelancer because I couldn't find a job. So I've been a freelancer, entrepreneur, consultant for the bulk of my career, which means I've seen a lot. I have experienced a lot. I've worked with startups, and so I have a whole other thought process about the whole startup craze and what that means. But what questions do you have? I would love to answer them because I think that we need to start having a better dialogue so that we're not setting people up for failure, thinking that they have to do it one way, because there's always more than one way to find your career success. There just is. And I have definitely explored multiple ways to do that. And so I would love to share my thoughts with you. If you have specific questions, ask them below in the comments. I look forward to hearing them. Thank you for joining me for VEDA Day 25, and just thank you for joining me just in general. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, hearing your questions, hearing your experiences. If you've had, some experience in the space, what was that? I would love to hear your story, and chatting with you in the comments. So share, tell me what you think, ask me what you'd like to know, and I look forward to the next time that we can talk again. Bye.